Hey, somebody's got to catch the crickets. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
Do you mind telling me what this is all about, mister?
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth. I am the Professional Noticer.
Hey, Doc, wait! I want to ask you something.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. I know that our topics might seem to vary wildly at times, but it's because the things you care about most are often greatly affected by those odd things you care about least. Therefore, we will field questions about business, spiritual issues, and popular culture, and tackle the odd conundrum like, is it legal to sell a pound cake that weighs only 12 ounces? My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by Takimoto Joe Premium Ceramic Grills. You know, these are my grills. These are the grills that I have, that I use. If you've listened for any amount of time, you know this. I am in love with these Takimoto Joe grills. Have you ever been in the middle of something? I was just thinking about this. Have you ever been in the middle of something and you love doing it and you love where you're going with it, you know the outcome you want, but you're frustrated by the quality of tool you're using? I mean, it didn't break, but it just didn't work like it could have. Well, some years ago, this was the realization a couple of guys had about grilling. I mean, they were guys, man. They loved grilling outdoors, and they grilled all the time, but they would always be a bit disappointed by their grills. They knew there had to be a better way, and there was, and there is. As it turned out, these guys had the ability, with stuff they had learned, that allowed them to design and develop a better grill. And the circumstances were perfect at the time for them to bring that grill to us, the Takimoto Joe, in all its sizes. There's the Joe Jr. I call it the Little Joe because I watched Bonanza. There's the classic. There's the Big Joe. And it has tons of specialized tools, man. The Jotisserie. It's just tons of stuff that are just awesome with this product. And it's not just a line of products. Takimoto Joe's not just a line of products. Takimoto Joe is what happens when a couple of guys who love to grill get serious about creating the world's best ceramic cooker. And it is the best. I dare you to stand this product against any competing product. I mean, you can just look at them and it'll walk around it and you'll know immediately this is the best. Takimoto Joe's goal is simple, and that is that each product bearing the Takimoto Joe name becomes a trusted part of exceptional grilling experiences for you. So check out KimatoJoe.com. You're listening to the Professional Noticer. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, we're in, Matt, 75 countries?
75.
75 countries. We're not just in 75 countries. I guess because it's the internet, we're actually in all the countries. Okay, but we actually have listeners in 75 countries now. We added Ecuador last week. So Ecuador, right on the equator. Isn't that awesome? I'm excited. You know, Matt and I were talking about Ecuador, and he had gone to Ecuador a bunch of years ago. And one of the things that he found, he was on a tour or something, and one of the tour guides had showed them a certain area where these archaeological digs were. And evidently a number of years ago, the French came in, and their mathematicians and their people had done some figuring and spent several weeks to delineate where the equator actually was. So not only does the equator run through Ecuador, here is where it is. Here's the line. And so they did that line. Well, it was years after that anybody ever dug up the line, and they found there these stone tablets, these massive stone things that had been left there with hieroglyphics and the explanations of that being the actual line. That was the line, the center of the earth, the equator. And so thousands of years before the French ever got there with their mathematicians, these people already knew. They had already discovered it. They had noted it. And so it always is curious to me. We talk about needing to learn. And I know we need to learn. But one of the things I want to learn, I'm very curious about, how have we forgotten so much of what we learned? I mean, where did that gap occur? Where did it happen that people no longer knew where that line was or how to use that? I mean, these people had it marked, and there's a lot of things like that we forgot, that we have forgotten, that we look back now, and we don't even know how they knew how to do it or how they did it in the first place. Just an observation. Of course, observations and answers are what we do here. I'm Andy Andrews. I'm the professional noticer, and I deliver these observations. You provide the questions, though. Questions are a critical component of the person you and I aspire to become. Nobody should be embarrassed to ask a question. A person who never asks a question, they either know everything or they know nothing. Always remember, the quality of your answers can only be determined by the quality of your questions. We need your questions. So please send in your questions. 1-800-726-ANDY. You just talk on the phone, or the professional noticer at andyandrews.com. So if your question is chosen for broadcast, you'll have your choice of the 100-year parenting course or the guided traveler experience. This week, our first question is from Dean. He is from Nebraska, a Cornhusker. Let's listen.
Hey, Andy, this is Dean from Nebraska. Can you tell us more about Jones? Is it possible that you could go into a bit more detail about your early personal life? I think a lot of us would be especially interested about the time when you lost your parents and lived under the pier. How did you come to interact with the characters in both Noticer books? I so want to know more about how Jones came about in your heart and mind. Thanks very much.
Dean, thank you so much for the question. Yeah, I love talking about Jones. For those of you who don't know, Jones is an old man that just kind of appeared in my life a long time ago. Dean, you asked if I would tell about my early personal life, and I think that was why Jones appeared, because of the time that I was having. I mean, it was, I say he appeared, it seemed like he appeared to me, because I was living under a pier, and the first time I saw him was like under the pier at night. He scared me to death. But what happened was, I was from a normal middle-class family, and at 19, my parents died. My mom died of cancer. My dad was killed in a car accident, and I've always had the ability to take a bad situation and make it worse, and I did. My dad was a minister. There's not a lot of insurance on ministers, I guess. And I got $2,500. And being the financial genius that I was, I took the entire $2,500 and bought a trailer with it. This was not a mobile home. This was a trailer. There's a big difference. And it was a good trailer, though. Had a big hole in the kitchen floor. Never had to open the door to sweep the place out. Just kind of sweep toward the hole. Avoid stepping in it in the dark. But that was my trailer. And, sometimes people ask, so, a trailer? Yeah, I had a trailer. And then it was a couple of years before I ended up under the pier. So, so I guess you want to know, how did that happen? What happened in those those 2 years. I can tell you the short story. I'd used all the money on the trailer. It never even occurred to me that, I know this sounds stupid, but it never occurred to me I would have to pay somebody to move it. It never occurred to me I would have to pay somebody to put it somewhere. And I literally, I was so behind the eight ball right off the bat, but there was an old man who I went in a bait shop one day and told this old man that, man, I'm looking for a place to put my trailer and I don't know what to do or where to put it. And this old man, he was like 75 years old then. He said, "Oh man, take your trailer and put it in my backyard." And he gave me the address and said, "Just, take this thing, have them guys put it in my backyard." He said, "If an old lady comes out of the house and says, 'What are you doing?' you just tell her Billy said to put it back there." I'm like, seriously? But I lived in his backyard for 2 years. Now, it was 2 years of getting the electricity cut off and getting the gas cut off and put back on. And it was a crazy 2 years. But the long story short of how I ended up under a pier, let me tell you this way. At first, I had a car and a trailer. Then I had a trailer and a motorcycle. Then I had a motorcycle and a tent. Then I had a tent. Then I was under the pier. And that's kind of the fast version of how it happened. But I was, Gulf Shores, Alabama at the time, it was kind of the Wild West. And, I didn't really think of myself as homeless. That wasn't even a word. Nobody talked about homeless people. And so, to me, I was living on the beach. And I'd be in and out of people's garages at night. During that time, in the wintertime, nobody came to their beach houses. And most of these rich people that had a beach house, they would leave the garage open, or there'd be an open door to the garage. I never went in anybody's house, but I went in a bunch of garages. And, people leave old soft drinks in refrigerators in garages and lunch meat. And so I did take advantage of both of those. But it was a crazy time. I was working. I was catching bait. I had a cast net. I was catching bait. I was cleaning fish. I was washing boats. I was selling fish. I was guiding fishermen. This was before anybody really guided, before there's any guides down here. But I would approach somebody that I saw that was towing a boat that had like a Birmingham tag or a Nashville tag on their car, and they'd come down I-65 and they'd come on vacation for a week, and they brought their boat. And I would, I'd get them in a conversation. Then I'd say, "Hey, you going to be fishing?" And they say, "Oh, yeah, we're going to be fishing." I said, "Well, you're in a unique situation right now." And they'd say, "How are you figuring?" I said, "Well, you have a boat, but you don't really know where to fish, do you?" And they go, "No, not really, And I said, "Are you familiar with saltwater fishing?" "No, we've never done any saltwater fishing." I said, "Well, see, there's the unique situation that you and I are meeting right now, because you have a boat and you don't know where to fish, but I know where to fish and I don't have a boat." and they would look at me and I go, and say, "Look, for $75 or $100, whatever I thought I could get away with, I'd say, for $75, I'll take you fishing. I will fish all day if you want to. And if you don't catch fish, you ain't got to pay me." Well, I always got paid because I could always put them on fish. Back then, it was a little different. There were a lot more fish than there are now. But it was a time where, end of the day, I'm under the pier again. And it was there that I met Jones. He showed up one night, just like in the Noticer. that very first chapter in the Noticer is true, just like it happened. I mean, that's how it happened. Okay. The rest of it is more my imagination with a lot of the things that I heard Jones say, or the people that I saw him deal with, or people that I met later that had known him. And so those characters, Dean, in both those books, except for a couple of them, that's their real name, but most of them I shifted their names just a little bit, or I created the character to mirror a situation that I really felt like I wanted to teach because of some stuff that I had heard Jones say, or that I had been told that he said. And so this was an old man who had a huge impact in my life. And people ask me sometimes, they say, what do you think he was? And my only answer to people is, what do you think he was? And, sometimes people say, well, I think he was an angel. And to me, I don't disagree. That sounds good to me. Or people say, well, I think, he was, how the Holy Spirit works to deal with other people. It's how the Holy Spirit helps somebody deal with somebody else, or a wise teacher. I don't really know. This is a guy who I still think about every day, that still rings in my head, that when I work on writing particular things that are connected to him, I can still hear his voice. And so if you haven't read The Noticer and then The Noticer Returns, I would really urge you to do so. In The Noticer Returns, I can't remember exactly which chapter it is, but it's like a 6-page chapter. It's a short chapter, but it's a chapter where I saw Jones dealing with a man whose wife was dying. And sometimes I go back and I read that part of that book in The Noticer Returns, and I feel, I don't know, I feel a little bit eerie about what is written there, because I feel like it's one of those kind of things I don't really remember writing, and I think it's really good. And so when I think something's really good, I'm like, it couldn't have been me. And but this is, when there are people, a family who is facing a family member dying, or a person who is facing dying, this book is the book to give them. And, even if you say, here, I just want you to just go sit over there and read these 6 pages, because I think it explains the process of death in a way that calms people in the family, that calms the person about their impending passing. And these are Jones' thoughts, Jones' words. And so still think about the old guy. I have talked to tons of people since the books came out, and received emails from all over the world about people who have run into him. I have not seen him in a number of years, but I know people who have. And some of the descriptions of the encounters are pretty amazing. Anyway, Dean, thanks very much for the question. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Our next question is from Jean, and she's from Delaware. Let's listen.
Hey, Andy. This is Jean from Delaware. I have a simple question. I'm sure your answer won't be simple, but the question is quick and to the point. Here it goes. How do you handle all the hatred and negativity that's now taking place in our country and across the world?
Well, Gene, I don't know if my answer is simple or not. I don't think there is a simple answer to this for everybody, for anybody. How do you handle all the hatred and negativity that's now taking place? And I mean, how do I? You're asking me, how do I do it? A lot of it has to do with dealing with what I can deal with and being able to unfocus on the other stuff. I mean, I guess I handle the hatred and the negativity by not allowing it to get its claws into me. It would be easy to do. It'd be easy to allow those claws to dig in and gain hold and then start metastasizing. Because obviously you asked the question because it's everywhere. You're right. It's taking place in our country. It's across the world. It's everywhere you look, seemingly. Okay, now get this. It's seemingly everywhere you look. It's not really everywhere you look. It seems to be everywhere you look. It's not really in your backyard. It's not, you go out fishing on the edge of a pond or a lake with your child. It's not really there. It's not, out in the woods. It's not on the walk with your dog, but it does seem to be everywhere. And so I gotta say, part of the way I handle this is to, number one, I have to figure out in my own life when I see something or when I think about something, can I do anything about that? I mean, like right now. Okay, now long term, I can probably do something about it because I can vote certain people in, or I can stand up for certain things, or I can raise my children a certain way, or I can become the kind of person who other people listen to and want to be around. So long term, I can begin to mitigate some of this hatred and negativity, but can I handle this today? And my answer when I ask that question is often no, I cannot. I cannot do anything about this today. All right. So if I can't do anything about it today, if I can't do anything about it this hour, I'm not going to let it dominate my thoughts. Now, I got to tell you, Gene, there is a way that people allow this kind of stuff to dominate their thoughts. And one way is getting up every morning and turning on the television to the news. I just, I was somewhere recently and I saw the morning news. I wasn't the one that could get up and turn it off. Okay, but it's, it was the local news. And so there's this, there's a 45-second story about a child who was murdered, and then another 60-second story about a woman who was taken and beaten, and then another 60-second story about two murders that are in question, and so there's somebody else about the fight of the city council. And I got to tell you something. I don't need to start my day that way. I don't need to know the local news. I mean, honestly, for the most part, I don't really need to know the national news. If it gets bad enough, somebody's going to tell you. I mean, don't you find that as soon as some celebrity dies, everybody starts texting you? Hey, did you hear so-and-so died? Hey, so-and-so died. Hey, did you hear this? I mean, so if somebody that played the role in a situation comedy 50 years ago died, and you have 10 people text you to tell you this, and it's on Facebook and it's on Instagram. Do you not think that if it's really serious and concerns you and your family, do you not think somebody's going to tell you? I'm just trusting everybody to tell me. And so when I get up and I come down to my office and I do my quiet time and my reading, and then begin to write or work or send messages or whatever it is they do to talk. I mean, I do not do it with the local news hanging over my head. That's not what I want to put in my mind at the first of the day or at the last of the day or in the middle of the day. I can't do anything about it right now. And so sometimes, I've talked about this and I've told people, yeah, I'm on a news fast right now. I might do it for only a month, but I'm fasting from news. And so I'm not aware, really, I guess, but I'm fasting from news. But I find I get a lot of work done. I find that I am a lot calmer, that my family is happier. If we're watching television, it's usually something from Netflix or some old DVD, because even if you watch regular network TV, tonight at 9, massive murder case, it's like even the commercials, right? And so I am very careful about what influences my thoughts on a daily basis. So Gene, you said, how do I handle that? That's how I handle that. That's what I do. And I really believe that you're not going to miss anything, that you can go on a news fast. I mean, try it for 7 days. Try a 7-day news fast and just kind of see how you feel. See what happens. See if you miss anything. Sometimes people say, well, what about national, elections and national politics and all like that? Well, I'll tell you how I look at that. I am an Alabama fan. Okay. Why? Some of it has to do with the fact that my parents were, my grandparents were, but somewhere in my teen years, I made a decision to be an Alabama fan because of Bear Bryant, because of what he stood for, because of what he taught, because of the young men he was turning out. I became an Alabama fan. Now, through the years, I have not watched every game. I hadn't even been aware of all the games that were going on at some points during my life, but I've always been an Alabama fan. I didn't really need to, stop every year and refigure. And so, okay, am I going to Auburn or Alabama this year? I mean, I never really had to refigure. And, political organizations are a lot like teams. And you can look at sides and you can determine what those sides represent. Do they represent your principles? Do they represent what you believe? And I've heard people say in the past, well, I vote for the person, not the party. Okay. But when you do that, it really doesn't matter, because the team aspect, it dominates what that person does. I had a friend, he was a great, great guy who believed a lot of the things that I believed. I felt like we were like really lined up. And he ran for political office, but he ran for a different team than I thought he would run for. And he assured me, and he assured a lot of other people, this doesn't really matter. It's the only way I can get elected in this area is to run with his team. But when I get to Washington, I'm the same person, and I'm voting for what I believe. Well, I believed that, and I'm sure he believed that. But there are pressures that go onto somebody like that, and he never did. He voted the other way over and over again for 3 terms until he was defeated by somebody else who probably was voting for the way they did believe instead of him who was voting for his team. But it's totally understandable. It's totally understandable. And this is why, this is why I vote for the team. I don't vote for the person. It's totally understandable because think about if you and your best buddy go to the YMCA and there's going to be a pickup basketball game that night. You've been best friends with this guy for years and years and years. And so the pickup basketball game, 2 captains are chosen. Then they flip a coin. Now they start choosing sides. Well, you and your best friend end up on different teams. Okay. So, it's fine. Nobody says anything. Now you're going to play. Okay, during the game, do you say to your best friend, hey, throw me the ball. Throw me the ball. Well, if you did, he's not going to do it. Why? Because he's on the other team. Yeah, but he's my best friend. It doesn't matter. He's on the other team. And the pressure of the other team will compel him to throw that ball through the hoop they are trying to throw it through. And, he may throw he, in some odd circumstance, you may talk him into throwing you the ball, but if he throws you the ball one time, he's never going to get the ball again. They are never going to let that guy have the ball again. Well, he's your best friend. And that's what happens in politics. This is why in national elections, you want to vote for the team. You want to vote for the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter really the person, the president. It doesn't matter. So what do you believe? What do you believe about certain things? What do you believe about the hatred and negativity in the world? Where does it come from? How is it caused? What are the principles by which you live? Do you believe? And listen, I'm not going to get into an abortion debate on this, okay? But here's just a very simple idea. If you believe that abortion is wrong and that it is how this is a baby, and that this baby is being, killed, or if that's what you believe, then you vote one way. If you believe that this is like a viable tissue mass, okay, but the woman's right to choose supersedes all the other arguments, and that the woman's right to choose is the ultimate arbiter of what happens. If that's how you believe, then you vote the other way. But it's not some person that's going to go one way or another. It's the team. But go on a news fast. Okay, Gene? Go on a news fast. You'll be able to think through a lot of stuff that's like storming your brain right now. Okay, thank you. Whew. I am the professional noticer. I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk. Shake hands with the kids you meet. And make sure you have an answer to the question, why do we never hear about bulletproof pants? And so until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Lippert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Catnip brownies provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by Norman's Jell-O Emporium, offering your choice of 21 Jell-O flavors and 4 levels of Jell-O density. Norman's Jell-O Emporium, celebrating its 10th anniversary on Main Street in the town of Sawyerton Springs, this store has become an institution. People stand outside every morning with one question on their minds: is the Jell-O hard yet? Sure, Norman's has the old standbys, cherry, lime, and orange, but they also have Jell-O flavors for more discriminating tastes. Among Norman's exciting new offerings are the Kung Pao Chicken and the Beef Wellington Jell-Os. Choose from firmness levels, drool spoon, fork tender, finger food, and ballistic jet in or take out, and don't forget they cater. That's Norman's Jell-O Emporium.